The sun was blazing in the sky and the day seemed like any other. The main character stood on the school rooftop, looking down at the bustling courtyard below. He was lost in thought, feeling like life had become too repetitive. But little did he know, everything was about to change in the most terrifying way possible. Suddenly, a loud scream shattered the peace. He turned his head sharply, scanning the grounds. A commotion had started at the school gate, where a strange figure was banging on the metal bars. The teachers tried to intervene, but something wasn't right. The figure lunged at one of them, biting their arm viciously. The main character's heart raced as chaos erupted below. Students were running, screaming, and falling as more of these strange attackers appeared. He realized this wasn't a random accident. This was something much worse. Without wasting a second, he rushed downstairs to find his friends. He knew sticking together would be their only chance. The hallways were already filled with terrified students, some of them fighting off the attackers. The main character barely managed to avoid being grabbed as he sprinted to the classroom. Inside, his closest friend was already gathering supplies, while another was in shock, frozen in fear. "We need to move," the main character said firmly, snapping everyone out of their daze. Together, they barricaded the door and tried to come up with a plan. But where could they go? Would staying in the school be any safer than leaving? As they crept through the building, the main character led the way, keeping an eye out for danger. He had to stay calm, even though fear was clawing at his chest. At one point, they stumbled across a group of survivors fighting off attackers with makeshift weapons. Seeing this, the main character knew they needed to arm themselves too. They found a storage room filled with sports equipment. Grabbing anything that could be used as a weapon, they prepared for what lay ahead. The main character held a bat tightly, trying to steady his trembling hands. The group decided to make their way to the rooftop, hoping it would be a safer place to figure out their next move. But the journey was anything but easy. The hallways were filled with chaos, and every corner they turned could mean danger. At one point, they heard cries for help coming from a nearby classroom. The main character hesitated. Should they risk helping or focus on their own safety? His decision would shape how the group viewed him as a leader. What would you do in his place? Would you take the risk to save someone else? The main character chose to help, bursting into the classroom and fighting off attackers to save a trapped student. It wasn't easy, and they barely made it out alive. But in that moment, he realized something important. Surviving wasn't just about fighting. It was about protecting each other. When they finally reached the rooftop, they had a brief moment of relief. From up there, they could see the full extent of the chaos. The city was in ruins, smoke rising from various buildings, and the streets were overrun. It wasn't just the school. This was happening everywhere. The main character's mind raced. What could have caused this? How could they possibly escape and survive in a world that seemed to be falling apart? As night fell, the group decided to rest in shifts. But even as they tried to sleep, the main character couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. His mind wandered to his family. Were they safe? Would he ever see them again? The next day, the group realized they couldn't stay on the rooftop forever. Food and water were limited, and the attackers were still roaming below. The main character suggested they try to reach a nearby shelter they had seen from the rooftop. It was a risky plan, but staying put wasn't an option. Their journey through the school grounds was tense. Every shadow felt like a threat. Every noise made their hearts skip a beat. At one point, they had to crawl through a narrow hallway filled with attackers. The main character led the way, silently guiding the group past the danger. When they finally made it outside, the world looked even more terrifying. Cars were abandoned, buildings were damaged, and the streets were eerily quiet except for the occasional distant screams. Well, the main character knew they had to move quickly. They came across a small convenience store and decided to search for supplies. Inside, they found some food and water, but the main character noticed something else. Signs of a struggle. Bloodstains on the floor and overturned shelves told a chilling story. As they left the store, the main character couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was watching them. He urged the group to keep moving, but tension was building. Finally, they reached the shelter, only to find it wasn't as safe as they had hoped. The doors were open, and it looked like the attackers had already been there. But they had no other options. The main character stepped inside cautiously, ready for anything. By the end of the day, he realized that survival wasn't just about fighting off the attackers. It was about making tough decisions, staying strong for the group, and holding on to hope no matter how grim things seemed. But the question remained, how long could they keep this up? Could they find a way to escape this nightmare and rebuild their lives? If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let us know, what would you do if you were in his shoes? Could you survive?